Hello my fellow plant eaters, world's biggest T-Rex here. Today I'm going to be talking about a question that popped up in my mind a few minutes ago. And something that I really cannot fully understand myself. It might just be based on bias and just me being generally stupid as per usual. And the question being, why does it seem like licensed chapters in DBD are usually more fun and more enjoyable to play as and against? Now, this isn't to say that it isn't fun to play as or against original killers, but what I have found in general is that licensed killers are usually more appreciated, and people tend to like to play against them a lot more than original killers. I'm going fully off script this video, so sorry if there's a lot of jump cuts, but I do tend to lose my mind. Well, I mean, yeah, that too, but lose my train of thought, and I tend to like semi-stutter a little bit. So there will be including a lot of jump cuts and stuff like that, because I'm too lazy to write a script about this. About an hour ago, Behavior revealed the trailer for the new Alien chapter, and that is kind of the main reason why I even started thinking about this question at all. And it just really kind of weirded me out why it seems like the licensed chapters are usually like better in some ways. And I still don't really fully understand it, but I do have some small little theories to why it may seem like this is the actual case. And the first thing is that they never really seem to have a fundamental problem about them compared to a few other killers. The most problematic killers in the game are generally killers who can super easily 3-gen and camp hooks and tunnel easily, like for example Skull Merchant, of course, stuff like the Knight, and killers like Nurse that can blink through walls and stuff like that, who kind of have a fundamental problem with them that is basically impossible for Behavior to fix, because they already lost themselves during the design phase, and they have kind of backed themselves into a corner where they can't do much about it. We have seen a little bit of this with licensed chapters, mainly Freddy Krueger, who the old Freddy Krueger was really weird and didn't really work out as well as they expected it to be, and the new Freddy Krueger is kind of just bad and kind of mediocre to play as and against, and stuff like the old pig being able to camp jigsaw boxes and stuff like that. But these are kind of isolated incidents where they have kind of learned from themselves, compared to them releasing 3 killers in a row that is specifically made to camp and control survivor objectives. And I think that is one of the biggest reasons why it feels like licensed chapters just in general are better. And I mean, you can go around and guess why this is, and wonder why it is this way. But I think one of the main reasons, and probably one of the most interesting reasons to why licensed chapters usually are better, I don't know if this is a contractual thing, if this is an actual agreement that Behavior has with whoever they're making a chapter with, or whoever's license they are using, but I think it has a lot to do with reputation, because the license holders and Behavior, their biggest interest is to keep their reputation as good as possible. And if Behavior goes ahead and releases a bad licensed chapter that is just super boring to play against, that is not interesting at all, that can hurt both companies a lot. It hurts the licensed holders because they kind of get a negative reputation from it, and it also hurts Behavior, because then there is a risk that nobody really would like to work with Behavior in the future because of what has happened with the companies that they have worked with in the past. So it is usually in both of their interests to create something that isn't really bad and disruptive for people and makes people dislike that certain thing. And as we can see, that doesn't really happen a lot. And a lot of the people who complain about licensed killers and who kind of like hate on them doesn't usually have that much to do with the license holders. The one that I can come to think of is Pinhead, the Cenobite, which has just been just has a horrible reputation. I personally don't understand the overwhelming hate that playing as Pinhead gets, because if you at this stage don't understand how to play against this killer, then you're pretty shit at the game. But the license holders themselves got into a big drama because they made like some stupid NFT shit with the Cenobite likelihood that Behavior made. So people already kind of hate these people, and nobody really cares about giving hate to Pinhead because they don't respect the people who hold the license anyways. And then, like I said, Freddy Krueger is also one that people kind of hate a little bit on, and the same with the pig. But this has more to do with some gameplay aspects that players bring into the game. With the pig, it is more of an RNG perspective that kind of ruins it. And makes it kind of feel really bad, because dying of a trap is mostly based on RNG, and stuff like Freddy Krueger. People are just gonna like dislike everything at some point, and people dislike playing against Freddy Krueger for whatever reason. Again, it's usually people who just don't know how to play against something, so they complain about the killer instead of trying to improve themselves. But other than that, I think that this is a kind of big reason why, because Behavior doesn't want to ruin their own reputation with other license holders, but they also want to make sure that the license holders that they're making a chapter with doesn't flop and becomes like a big kind of drama thing. Because they don't want to ruin the reputation of the license holders either, or like that particular character or the universe or whatever has to do with that chapter. Another thing that I think is a really big thing is that Behavior doesn't have to really do the character design. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and say that Behavior are bad at designing characters and coming up with ideas for new original characters, because they really aren't. They have come up with some really good stuff, but I think the key to them being able to create a much better and enjoyable character when they're doing licenses is that they do not have to care about what the character looks like and what their personality is and the backstory and stuff like this. They simply have to care about implementing this into the game, and they don't really have to care at all about trying to make a cool character, because a cool character already exists and they can just use that and put their own twist on it. And I think a big thing is that it leaves a lot of breathing room for them to make something that is more interesting to play, because they already have like a fundamental idea of what the licensed character is and how it kind of works, and it's already been put into life. It's already been in its own stories and stuff like that. Like creating Amanda Young, for example, would probably be impossible for Behavior to come up with an original character like it, because it is such a specific character that has a big world building around it, and it has all these like connecting characters and character arcs and whatever stuff that just connects the character with the game and with interactions, which is a lot harder to do if they're doing an original character. And I don't think that Behavior has really learned how to do this fully, which we can see with a lot of their original chapter releases, which isn't, to blame them, because they are not professional character designers or character makers. They're not people who make horror icons, horror villains, and whatever, because these already established licensed horror characters are really thought out and are made from complete professionals who are really good at creating characters and creating stories and just being really good writers, which is something that Behavior doesn't really do. Some of them also boils down to having perk ideas already established, and it's a lot easier for Behavior to create interesting perks that are connected to the character if they already have a set character that is really thought out, which we have with the licensed ones. And it is super easy for Behavior to come up with ideas that are cool with the perks that are made for the licensed killers. We have so many examples of this. If we go to, for example, Michael Myers, we can see that his 3 perks are based on being obsessive with someone and being kind of a stalker, which is what Michael Myers is. If we go to Bubba, we can see references to the movie and to his character with the knockout, barbecue and chili, and Franklin's demise. And this just goes for every single licensed killer that they have, because their perks are somehow connected to their character, and they're connected to certain lines in the movies. They're just like connected to how the character works in their respective license, which I think is a thing that actually helps Behavior a lot, because they don't have to figure out the core ideas for the perks, because they already kind of exist in the world. And the fourth one, and is also one of the biggest points, which I think elevates Behavior's character design a lot, is that they have to make a character make sense in the game format and not vice versa. This is a thing that I believe that Behavior do a lot. They take the game as it is, they take the mechanics that exist, they know everything about the game, obviously, and then they try to create a character around the game that would fit inside the game. But with the licensed characters, they instead have to make the character make sense in the game, which I think opens up a lot of creative aspects, and I think that really helps them with creating like cool characters and cool killers and cool new abilities, how they work in the game, because they are trying to put an already established character, an already established license, an already established horror icon, and whatever that already exists in the world, and they're taking that character and they're trying to fit it into Dead by Daylight instead of actually using the game to create a character. And that is a big thing that I think helps Behavior with creating these chapters that make them seem a little bit better and more entertaining to play as and against, because they are not focused on the game, they are instead trying to focus on the character and making the character make sense in the game format. Another thing I think is that they try to merge communities a lot of the time. I think this is something that they have in the back of their mind, that they try to merge the communities from horror fans with the Dead by Daylight fans, and they want to create a character that is appealing to the horror fans that aren't really big fans of DBD or play the game. They want to make it appealing to actually come to the game and play these characters, and that's why they try to focus more on making them interesting and unique compared to what they would normally do. And again, of course, I'm not trying to say that all the licensed characters are a lot better than the original ones, and I'm not trying to say that people in general enjoy these a lot more than the original characters. In fact, this is a tier list I made not too long ago, and we can see that my top 3 favorite killers to play against is original characters, but we can also see that the killers that I dislike the most to play against are all original ones and not a single licensed one. And I think that still has some merit, but of course it is all about subjectivity and is nothing that will apply to everyone, no matter what, really. And I just think it's a lot of the vibe as well, like playing an actual killer, like playing a killer that has existed in media for a long time, that isn't created for the game or by the game or anything like that. I think the whole just aesthetic of that is a lot more enjoyable to play as, which is why people like it more, compared to playing some random shit that Behavior put together. It's so much cooler and a much cooler feeling playing these characters that come from different medias, that aren't like video games, that aren't Dead by Daylight and stuff like that. And I think it just feels so much nicer to play these characters, because it is a lot cooler than playing, you know, some random original character. It doesn't necessarily have to be more fun, but it's definitely cooler to play as and against already established, like I said, horror icons, which is what most of these chapters are. And it's just cool to see Behavior take their own twist on these characters and do what they do with them, compared to them making some original stuff, which again, I'm not saying that they are bad at making original characters, but it is definitely more interesting to play as these characters that aren't really made, as I said, for Dead by Daylight and by Dead by Daylight. And I mean, that's just my general take on this whole subject, why I think the licensed characters and licensed chapters are more appreciative, enjoyable. There, of course, I can be wrong about a lot of stuff, and it can be a lot of other reasons, but this was just a question that kind of, like I said, popped up into my mind, and I wanted to try to answer it myself and try to figure out a little bit why I feel like that's the general feeling for, in my case, why it is so much nicer and cooler to play against and as these characters compared to the original ones. Tell me what you think. I'm not 100% sure about my thoughts. I tried to make this make sense to me. It might be some slight bias, it might just be me being completely deluded from reality, but I genuinely do think that there is some merit in saying that licensed chapters are usually better and more enjoyable compared to the original ones. But I could obviously be wrong. Maybe I'm in a minority, maybe I didn't bring up the correct stuff, maybe I'm right, maybe I am in the majority, but the points I brought up aren't the reason why people think this. I don't know, it's just my own view on the thing. We'll see what happens with the Alien chapter. I don't really know if it's gonna be good or not. They just revealed it, like I said. It's hard for me to be optimistic about Dead by Daylight now, because it's in such a bad spot. I don't hate the game, I don't love the game. It's just becoming kind of stale and mediocre for me right now. So I think this comes from a state of optimism that it's a licensed chapter and it might make the game more enjoyable to play. Who knows? We'll see what happens. Anyways, I hope you enjoy the video, and if you also enjoy this beautiful shirt right here, well, this super limited edition, only 23 in the world, go ahead to my super best friend ever in the whole entire world, his beautiful clothing line, www.napnight.com. You can find it in the description. Help support my beautiful little nap bird, and I will bless you right now. Never ever in your entire life are you ever gonna have to play against Skull Merchant again.